I get home, the politicians have been quite busy spending the next generation's money. Pretty soon, we will have spent the Social Security surplus, and the baby boomers will start retiring. Just in a few years from now, the next president's watch. And of course, it skyrockets from there, and it will result in astronomically high deficits, a tax burden on the next generation and generations to come, and a ruination of our economy. Every economist who's looked at this, including our own government officials who are the watchdog agencies, such as the Government Accountability Office, says that this path is unsustainable. Everybody in Washington knows it. You know, one of the arguments against term limits, I put term limits on myself when I went to the United States Senate. I still think it's a pretty good idea, to tell you the truth. But one of the arguments against that is that look at all the expertise that you lose, you know, if you have term limits. Is it expertise that we're lacking, or is it lack of will to do the right thing? I think it's the latter. And yet the politicians kick the can down the road until presumably their own retirement, somebody else's problem. I wonder if our little kids and our grandchildren and those yet to be born had a seat at the table, what they'd say about it. I wonder what they'd say to us. I wonder what they'd think about us. My friends, we need to deliver a message to Washington. We're better than that. And you can start delivering that message by electing a president who will blow the whistle on this lack of responsibility, and I'm the guy who will do that. Now, there are a lot of issues that we're going to have a chance to talk about all across Iowa, in large groups and small, I hope. No way in one speech to touch on all of them. I think one thing is important to point out, though, in my estimation, and that is that there are going to be issues, regardless of what we come up with, in terms of an issue list, that the next president cannot foresee, that we can't foresee. Some we know about will still be with us. There will be new ones. I think it's very important that people understand a man's principles, what he measures things by. What will be the standards that he applies as issues come before him. As far as I'm concerned, I still have the same common sense conservative beliefs I did when I ran in 1994. We were able to win that election, going from one end of that state to the other, talking about the sanctity of life, talking about lower taxes, talking about less regulation, talking about the market economy, talking about free competition, talking about respect for private property rights in this country, talking about free and fair trade, and all those things that made America great. And if I said then that if we just stick with that, the American people agree with these things, we'll just stick with that, not only will we be successful, but we'll continue to be prosperous in this country. We've been a beacon for all those other countries out there who ever applied those same principles. They've all been successful. All been successful. And the American people said yes. 94. Unexpectedly, a lot of people. Remember? Clinton had kind of cleaned their clock there for a while. We came back strong. Got a mandate to cut taxes and balance the budget and pass welfare reform and make Congress live under the same laws that everybody else. The first thing I did with Chuck Grassley is get that bill passed. Under his tutelage, not a bad guy to learn from. And
there you go.
So I'm that same guy. I haven't changed from those principles anywhere along the way. I'm the same guy and the same principles that I had when I went back to Lawrenceburg and started the first Young Republican Club right out of law school in 1968. I'm the same guy I was when I came out here a few times over the years, campaigning for a Republican candidate, because I thought it was a good thing for my party and a good thing for my country. And I still think that way. But these positions are based upon certain principles. I call them first principles. I call them the principles that our country was founded upon many years ago. They're based upon the notion that some things in this changing world just don't change. It's based upon appreciation of human nature. It's based upon the wisdom of the ages. It's based upon the belief that the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States are not outmoded documents that can be cast aside. That we still get our basic rights from God and not from government. We still have a government where power is divided, not just at the federal level, but between the federal and the state level. Federalism is about freedom. It's about individual freedom. It's about political freedom. It's about economic freedom. It's about an understanding that a government powerful enough to give you everything can take away from you anything. Based on the notion that we want a government that is limited to the powers delegated to it in the Constitution, but a government that's strong enough to protect our people, and a government that is competent enough to do the things that a government is supposed to be doing. Yet more and more we see that that is not true. When I was chairman of the Governmental Affairs Committee in 2001, I put out a report called Government at the Brink, about a 2-volume report. And I pointed out just how hopelessly messed up the bureaucracy in our federal government was, and how many billions of dollars we were wasting. And the fact that we couldn't get computers to talk to each other, and we couldn't get governments, agencies, or the government itself to really pass an audit, couldn't live up to standards that they put on private businesses at all. An outmoded civil service system, we weren't getting enough people in that we needed for the high-tech requirements that the future was going to bring us, and made it virtually impossible to get rid of anybody that wasn't doing the job. On and on and on and on. That was my opinion then, and folks, I haven't changed my mind a bit. It's even worse than it was before. It's going to require a strong leadership to do something about it, because now we see it's affecting national security. Now we see that it's used as an excuse for us not even enforcing our borders against illegal immigration, and we can't tolerate that in this country, because we know that a country that cannot secure its own borders ultimately will not remain a sovereign nation. That battle in Congress over that last immigration bill is the latest in several pieces of evidence that demonstrates without a shadow of a doubt that there's a major disconnect between Washington, D.C. And the American people. Because when we look at Congress, we see division, acrimony, disruption, looking to everything toward the next election and not the next generation, short-sighted political opportunism here and there. Is this the government that our Democratic friends say should play a larger and larger role in all of our lives? I don't think so. It's kind of ironic that the Democrats are moving more and more toward the Western European system of higher taxes, more regulation, and larger government, when countries like France and Germany are moving more our way. You know, we ought to read the newspapers every once in a while. Some good things are happening over there now, based on our traditional principles. Principles that understand that the rule of law underlies everything else in this country. People can go in and get a fair shot, and a fair hearing, and a fair court based upon the law of the Constitution. Unfortunately, the rule of law is violated more often than not by judges themselves more than anybody else.